Imagine waking up 30,000 years ago. There are no cities, no roads, and no laws. The only people you know are the few dozen members of your tribe. Every day is a battle against hunger, freezing nights, and predators hiding just beyond the firelight. But none of those dangers are as unpredictable as the people sitting beside you. One wrong look, one careless word, or one unexpected success could quietly change how someone feels about you. And in a world where survival depends on trust, that hidden feeling could become more dangerous than any wild animal. Jealousy is often thought of as a modern emotion, but evolutionary psychologists believe its roots reach back tens of thousands of years. In small hunter-gatherer groups, food, status, friendships, and mates were limited resources. When one person gained more respect or influence, someone else often had less. Your ancestors didn't need books to understand this. They learned it by watching people. For thousands of years, survival depended on something far more valuable than strength: reputation. In a tribe, everyone remembered everything. They remembered who shared food during a harsh winter, who ran first when danger appeared, who lied, who kept promises, and who always seemed to return from a hunt with the largest animal. Respect wasn't earned in a single day. It was built over hundreds of small moments. And once someone became respected, they gained something every other person wanted: better allies, better chances of finding a mate, more influence over decisions, more food during difficult times. Success didn't just improve your life, it quietly changed everyone else's. Now imagine being one of the younger hunters. Every morning you watch the same experienced man return with another successful hunt. Children admire him. Elders listen when he speaks. Even people who barely know him smile when he approaches. At first, you admire him too. But as the seasons pass, admiration slowly becomes comparison. Comparison becomes frustration. And frustration quietly becomes jealousy. Evolutionary psychologists believe this wasn't unusual. In small social groups, comparing ourselves with others helped us understand our own place in the tribe. The problem began when that comparison turned into resentment. Unlike anger, jealousy almost never announces itself. Anger explodes, jealousy waits. It hides behind polite smiles and ordinary conversations. That's exactly what made it dangerous. Someone driven by jealousy rarely attacked in the open. Open conflict could divide the tribe and put everyone at risk. Instead, small actions became powerful weapons: a forgotten invitation to hunt, a rumor whispered to the wrong person, less enthusiasm when celebrating another person's success. Tiny changes that looked meaningless on their own, but together slowly damaged trust. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies have observed how deeply cooperation depends on reputation. Once people begin doubting someone's reliability, even without solid evidence, relationships can change surprisingly fast. Your ancestors probably couldn't explain jealousy the way modern psychologists do, but they didn't need scientific words to recognize unusual behavior. The human brain is exceptionally good at detecting patterns. If one person always laughed at your jokes but suddenly stopped, your brain noticed. If someone who usually shared food became strangely reluctant, your brain noticed. If conversations suddenly became quieter whenever you walked toward the group, your brain noticed that too. These weren't conscious calculations. They were survival instincts shaped over thousands of generations. Missing those signals could mean trusting the wrong person at exactly the wrong moment. Researchers often describe humans as one of the most social species on Earth. That social intelligence didn't evolve simply to help us make friends. It evolved because understanding other people's intentions dramatically increased our chances of survival. Reading facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and subtle changes in behavior became almost as important as tracking animals or finding clean water. In many ways, our ancestors were constantly studying each other because every relationship carried both opportunity and risk. Think about how strange that is. Long before humans understood astronomy, medicine, or mathematics, they had already become experts at reading emotions. Not perfectly, of course. People still made mistakes. Trust was sometimes given to the wrong person, and innocent people were sometimes blamed. But over thousands of years, natural selection rewarded those who paid attention to social warning signs. The people who ignored every subtle change around them were often the ones caught completely by surprise. And the cost of surprise, in a world without second chances, could be far greater than hurt feelings. Sometimes it meant never making it home again. But if jealousy was so dangerous, why didn't evolution simply eliminate it? The answer is surprisingly uncomfortable, because jealousy itself wasn't the enemy. In many situations, it actually served a purpose. Imagine two hunters competing for the respect of their tribe. One notices the other becoming more successful. That uncomfortable feeling pushes him to become faster, stronger, and more skilled. In that sense, jealousy could motivate improvement. The problem began when people stopped trying to improve themselves and started trying to pull someone else down instead. Evolution gave humans the ability to compete. It also gave them the freedom to choose how they competed. This is why jealousy often hides behind imitation. Someone who secretly envies you rarely wants to be completely different from you. More often, they begin copying the things that make you successful: the way you speak, the way you dress, the people you spend time with. Even today, psychologists have noticed that people frequently imitate those they admire, but imitation mixed with resentment creates something much darker. It becomes an invisible competition where one person is trying to replace another without ever admitting it. Imagine living in a tribe where everyone depends on cooperation, yet one person quietly hopes another will fail. They don't need to attack you directly. They only need to wait for the perfect moment. Maybe during a dangerous hunt, they hesitate for just 1 second before helping. Maybe they casually question your judgment in front of the elders. Maybe they exaggerate one small mistake until everyone remembers it. None of these actions seem dramatic on their own, but together they slowly reshape how the tribe sees you. Human reputation has always been fragile. It takes years to build and only moments to damage. Scientists call humans an ultra-social species because our survival has always depended on relationships. Unlike solitary predators, our ancestors survived by trusting one another. That trust became one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Anyone who threatened it, even quietly, represented a serious risk to the entire group. This is one reason gossip exists in nearly every culture ever studied. Anthropologists believe gossip wasn't simply entertainment. It acted like an ancient information network, allowing people to share warnings about who could or couldn't be trusted. Unfortunately, gossip could also become a weapon in the hands of someone driven by jealousy. Picture yourself hearing a strange rumor about a friend. You don't know whether it's true. No evidence is offered. Yet, once the idea enters your mind, it's difficult to forget. That's because the human brain evolved to treat social information as potentially important for survival. Ignoring a false rumor might be harmless. Ignoring a true warning about an untrustworthy person could be deadly. Our ancestors lived with this uncertainty every day, and modern humans still carry the same psychological machinery inside their minds. Perhaps the most fascinating part is that your brain is constantly reading signals without asking for permission. Before you consciously decide whether someone feels happy for you, disappointed by you, or secretly threatened by your success, your subconscious has already begun collecting clues. A pause that lasts slightly too long, a smile that disappears too quickly, excitement that suddenly feels forced. None of these signs prove jealousy on their own, but together they create patterns. And humans have always been exceptional at recognizing patterns, even when they can't explain exactly why something feels different. By now, you might be wondering whether any of this still matters in the modern world. After all, we no longer live in caves or hunt for food with spears, but while our environment has changed dramatically, our brains have changed much more slowly. Evolution doesn't rewrite millions of years of programming in just a few thousand years. The same instincts that once helped your ancestors survive in small tribes now operate in offices, schools, families, and even online communities. The battlefield is different, but the psychology is remarkably familiar. Think about what happens when someone receives recognition that others wanted for themselves. Maybe it's a promotion at work. Maybe it's praise from a teacher. Maybe it's thousands of people celebrating a creator's success online. The reward itself isn't the only thing people notice. They also notice what it says about status. Deep inside the human mind, status has always mattered because, for most of history, higher status meant better protection, stronger alliances, and a greater chance of surviving long enough to raise children. Evolutionary psychologists believe this is why humans naturally pay close attention to where they stand compared to others. We are constantly measuring ourselves, often without realizing it. But here's where many people misunderstand jealousy. Not everyone who feels jealous becomes your enemy. Jealousy is a normal human emotion. Every person experiences it at some point. What separates healthy jealousy from destructive jealousy is the response that follows. One person sees your success and decides to work harder. Another sees the exact same success and quietly hopes you fail. The emotion may begin the same way, but the decision that follows changes everything. Perhaps the greatest survival skill your ancestors developed wasn't learning how to spot jealousy. It was learning not to feed it unnecessarily. Hunter-gatherer societies depended on cooperation, so openly showing off success could create unnecessary tension within the group. Anthropologists studying several traditional societies have observed cultural practices that encourage humility and discourage excessive boasting. By keeping pride under control, groups reduced conflict and strengthened cooperation. It wasn't about pretending success didn't exist. It was about protecting relationships that everyone depended on. There's an interesting lesson hidden inside that idea. Today, people often believe strength means proving everyone wrong. But for most of human history, real strength meant keeping a group together despite competition. The strongest individuals weren't always the loudest or the most intimidating. They were often the ones who could earn respect without creating unnecessary enemies. In a harsh world where survival depended on teamwork, emotional intelligence could be just as valuable as physical strength. So the next time you sense that something feels different in a relationship, don't rush to label someone as secretly jealous. Human behavior is complicated, and no single expression, gesture, or conversation can reveal another person's true intentions. Instead, pay attention to consistent patterns over time. That's exactly what your ancestors had to do. They couldn't afford to judge someone based on one bad day, but they also couldn't afford to ignore repeated warning signs. Wisdom came from observing patiently rather than reacting impulsively. In the end, the story of jealousy isn't really about other people. It's about us. It reminds us that beneath smartphones, skyscrapers, and modern technology, we still carry a mind shaped by ancient campfires and small tribes. We still seek belonging. We still compare ourselves to others. We still celebrate, compete, trust, forgive, and sometimes envy. Understanding those ancient instincts doesn't make us less human. It gives us the opportunity to become more aware of them. And perhaps the greatest lesson our ancestors can teach us isn't how to identify jealous people. It's how to refuse to let jealousy, whether our own or someone else's, control the choices that define our lives.